you probably are aware, you probably use ChatGPT, you've searched in Google and or another search engine, and you've gotten like an AI summary, and you've seen that information that comes up, and it's very convenient, and we're all using it. Um, but you may have wondered uh, how that impacts the traffic on your website, where all that information is coming from, how to know how do we know that that information is even accurate? And so, as part of our Digital Centers of Excellence group, we've kind of discussed these questions. We've discussed the concerns that are happening at government agencies around this. And Amanda Desaias from our team looked in and has looked into this, and she's done a lot of research. And interestingly, what I think we found is that this is really an extension of what we all have always talked about um, around SEO and a lot of the things that we've talked about in digital services with you guys, like structured content and good content hygiene and these best practices that we've talked about for years and years. Guess what? We're going to talk about them again because that is really how you win and are successful with this new generative AI search capabilities and what we're all experiencing. So I'm excited for Amanda to talk us through this. I think you'll be, I think you'll feel good about your websites and what you're doing because it's not going to be anything that's crazy new for you to have to redo and think about. It's all the things that we've talked about for all these years around organizing your content well, and we have an enviable position with our .gov domain or .edu domain, and that gives us a lot of authority. As has always helped us with SEO, and it helps us with this new generative search as well. So I think this will be a really enlightening discussion. Please use the Q&A. I'll be monitoring the Q&A. I'm going to go off camera, but I'll monitor the Q&A or the chat, and I'll jump in with Manda anytime that it seems maybe appropriate in the moment. But otherwise, I'll just hold off, and we'll get to those questions at the very end because she actually has a lot of content to get through right now, and so I'm gonna pass it over her so that we don't I don't waste any more of your time babbling. So thanks for being here, and Amanda, I'm gonna turn it over to you now. Thank you.
Thanks, Will. Good morning and welcome to Beyond SEO, Evolving Your Content in the Age of Gen AI. As Will said, I'm Amanda Desaias. I'm a lead content strategist on GTA's Digital Services and Solutions team, and I have with me our Director of Content, Will Alford. So he's going to be here, as you've seen, chiming in, answering some questions. So first, we'll talk about how AI is changing the user experience, and Will's kind of teased some of that. I think we've all experienced that a little bit. Then we'll review some ways you can take that knowledge and be prepared for these new trends. And finally, we'll suggest a few things that you can do to get started right away. And as Will said, if you do have any questions, just put them in the chat. We'll address them as we go, or probably mostly at the end. So just any questions you have, you can drop into the chat. So first, let's look at some of the trends in AI that are reshaping how users find and interact with your content. So as Will mentioned, you may have noticed that Google and other search engines now display AI-generated summaries of your search results for certain searches you may do. Google calls their version AI overviews. These were first launched by Google in May 2024. The use of AI overviews has actually grown exponentially this year. In January, they appeared in about 6.5% of searches. That became roughly one out of every five in May. By the end of the summer, it was just over half. And now that number has grown even further. So most Google searches in the US now have an AI overview. And we've seen that huge growth just from the beginning of the year to now. So, which searches are more likely to have an AI overview? The biggest trigger is informational queries. So, search queries that are longer, written in the form of a question, and in more natural conversational style are more likely to have AI overviews. AI overviews appear in 59% of these types of searches. Also, generic queries rather than brand related searches trigger AI overviews about a third of the time. And again, when we were putting this together, we were doing research sort of at the end of the summer, beginning of fall, and this has now even increased just in that time since we've scheduled this webinar. So, AI overviews appear when clear, factual, more generalized answers matter more than a specific brand or product comparison. How-to guides, explainer content, or niche educational topics will likely trigger AI overviews. So if your organization's services are more informational than transactional, you're more likely to be impacted by the rise of AI overviews. If you have a lot of explainer or how-to content on your website, or you deal with niche topics or audiences, which I know a lot of organizations here do, the same is true. And it will be especially important for you to be prepared for this shift. Nilay Patel, the editor-in-chief of The Verge, coined the term Google Zero in 2024. He said it's his name for that moment when Google search simply stops sending traffic outside of its search engines to third-party websites. And I know that's kind of like a scary thought for some people. The term AI overview signifies a future where Google acts as an answer engine rather than just a search engine, giving users information they need directly on the search results page without requiring them to click to other sites. And OpenAI just recently announced it's launching Atlas, which is an AI-based browser to compete with Chrome. So essentially, we're now at the point where we've transitioned from traditional SEO, search engine optimization, to GEO, generative engine optimization. And as we make this transition, the way users view and interact with your content is going to change. So, right now, for example, the Secretary of State's information on how to start a business looks like this on their website, and that's how users view it. But we're quickly transitioning to a state in which a user may view your content like this. They ask ChatGPT how to start a small business in Georgia, and it synthesizes that information into a step-by-step how-to guide. So now the challenge is, how do you make sure your information shows up there, is correct, and makes sense outside of the context of your website? An idea that's been discussed a lot in the last few years is the concept of AI is the new UI, or user interface. You can see a list of business and tech leaders who've all publicly discussed this concept recently. It's related to the Google Zero idea in the sense that it represents a fundamental shift in how users experience digital content. It's essentially talking about how AI will shift the focus of user interaction away from traditional website and app interfaces to Gen AI applications that will take natural language queries, interpret them, provide answers, and even anticipate user needs. So, like 10 to 15 years ago, we had the Google is your homepage trend, where users were searching Google and going directly to a website's internal page, and the user was bypassing the homepage and intended user path. And now this is the next big step in that evolution. So you may think we could reach a point where websites exist as information repositories just to feed Gen AI, but there are a ton of instances in which people need to refer to a website. So that could be for transactions, authority, reliability, trust, brand affinity, and so on. And this is especially true for government organizations. People have to interact with us eventually. So if you need to start a business or get a driver's license, you have to come directly to Secretary of State or the Department of Driver Services eventually. So I like to think of it like shopping at brick and mortar stores now. I think if you've if you've been out there at certain stores like Target, it feels like they basically exist as warehouses for online delivery and pickup orders because that's where a lot of their businesses shifted. So when you go into these stores as an in-person shopper, you're not necessarily the primary customer they had in mind. So shelves are empty, boxes of products are piled up, and it's a challenge to find an employee to help. We don't want our website experience to become like that, where we build content purely for AI and neglect website only users. But the good news is you can do both because the same best practices we talk about for excellent user experience also help your content get seen and retrieved by Gen AI. So, why does preparing your content for AI matter? Third-party sites are constantly refining their content to show up in search results and AI overviews, and we don't want users going to them instead of official government websites. And I know a lot of organizations already struggle with this. It makes users more vulnerable to scams, propaganda, or misinformation. Incomplete or incorrect information in GenAI applications leads to users having issues that agency staff will then have to sort out. And making your content AI friendly will help if you want to one day use a chatbot on your website. So now that we know all of this, what can we do to make sure the right content is reaching users without sacrificing that user experience? There are a few misconceptions to get out of the way when we discuss this. From what we know right now, buying Google Ads will not help your organic search results, traditional or AI overview. Search and AI companies do not have a way for you to report and correct false or outdated information. It's up to you to maintain accurate information on your website that will then feed Gen AI. And every time you submit a query to Gen AI, the answer will differ slightly. Every time each individual user submits one, it will differ slightly. So there's really no way to look at the information it retrieves and fix these like hyper specific little issues. The good news is, as Will was discussing, as a government organization, you have some key factors working in your favor. Just like traditional SEO, AI prizes authority. So, government, educational, and peer-reviewed research websites are sourced more often. Pew Research found that government websites appeared in 6% of AI summaries versus just 2% of traditional searches. So, that's a trend that's actually working in our favor right now. And existing best practices increase the likelihood of your information showing up in AI generated answers. Content written as a clear, direct answer can make it more likely to be cited by AI systems. Structured content helps clarify the format of content when it's being crawled. Q&A style format is easier for systems to identify and aligns with user intent, but it has to be complete. So one question and one answer covering a small part of a larger process will lack context and completeness. So provide the complete process for a task or a service. Try to keep the content about the same topic grouped together. Use phrasing that directly answers the question that was asked. FAQs may not be enough because it needs to be more than one part of a process or an answer. They can be tough to crawl and put together that information, and it's still not always great UX for the website user. But there are a lot of great existing content types, structured content types within GovHub, particularly the How Do I, that will help with that helps Gen AI crawl, make sense of, and retrieve your content for users. As our team has tested AI overviews and chat GPT results, we've seen that how do I content on GovHub tends to be retrieved more often, and the displayed results are closer to the content from the website. So all of the information from the how do I on Georgia.gov was right there. So this was pulled more directly in this AI overview result, with some of the information also coming from the DDS site. But you will see that there's a third-party site that also snuck in there as a primary source, and that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. A lot of the writing and formatting best practices for AI mirror what we've already been focusing on for years. So you want to break up text into short, readable paragraphs, put information in live text, not in PDFs, because PDFs often lack the structure like headings and metadata that HTML provides, which makes it harder to crawl and index. This is true for traditional search as well, and it's obviously often not accessible. And for all the same reasons, you shouldn't put text in images, especially if it contains critical details or instructions. Try to keep related information together on the same page or in the same section of the website. Structured formatting, like sections with headers and bulleted or numbered lists, signals a clear separation of ideas, which AI can repurpose directly. But avoid overusing them. So they work best for key steps, comparisons, or highlights. Most importantly, don't write for keywords, write for intent. That is a big thing. You want to write for that user intent. Think about what a user is really asking, what they're trying to accomplish, and write to help them achieve that goal. More and more, your content is being seen outside the context of your website, apps, or social media. When you create, edit, and organize content, think about how this would look with none of the other content in that section or user path. You can see here ChatGPT pulled out all the information about applying for unemployment benefits across several pages and sections of the Department of Labor website and basically turned it into a how do I. So it recontextualized and streamlined much of the same content. So now the user is viewing it without any of the additional information or supporting materials and manuals that DOL provided. So is that really going to be enough for the user? Will it accurately represent the entire process? Those are things to think about. It could be helpful to think about some of your key services and processes. Submit a few queries into AI-powered search or applications like ChatGPT and look at the format of the answers that you're getting back. You might be able to see where you can streamline information or maybe where you can fill in gaps on those pages of your website. So AI systems are built to interpret and use natural conversational language. So plain language standards are more important than ever. AI tries to mimic the tone and level of a query. So think about the terminology your audience uses and make sure that you're using that as well. When you write, keep in mind that as of 2023, an estimated 130 million US adults, that's about 54% of those aged 16 to 74, read below a sixth grade level. And as always, use clear, concise language, avoid vague wording or jargon. And again, this is a best practice that will help with user experience and accessibility and AI retrievability. With fewer users visiting your website for information, you're likely to see a decline in site traffic and a shift in analytics that track user behavior. And as we've said, if a lot of the services that you provide are more informational, you're going to see this more significantly. The number of site visits, users, or general time on site are not going to tell you as much anymore. So you really want to focus on the quality of visits rather than the quantity. Are users still getting the information they need and accomplishing their goals? Dive deeper into behavior metrics. So look at how deep users are scrolling into important pages, the time spent on high intent pages, where they're clicking through, and where they're exiting your site. Focus on your organizational metrics. This is going to be a really big pivot. I think a lot of organizations are already looking at these. We've spoken to some agencies whose KPIs are thinking about are things like event signups, completed applications, services rendered, bookings, and completed transactions. So it's really thinking about what is most important to your organization. Their website traffic may be down, but these organizations are still hitting their important benchmarks in those areas that are much more likely to be influential to their bottom line. So even if people are not coming to, not as many people are coming to the website, not as many people are staying on the website, but they're still getting to do what they need to, they're still completing the process. They may just have more information when they come to the website, which is great. We want them to quickly get what they need and reduce that agency burden. Track your referrals to see if AI related changes are shifting where your users are being referred from. And this is something you'll want to look at. I think you can get a benchmark from this year. And then as we go into 2026, start seeing if you see changes with that. We've already started to see some small changes on Georgia.gov and some other sites where we take a look at their analytics. Uh, Track user paths through your site year over year to note how user behavior may have changed. If users have more information by the time they get to your site, their visits may be shorter and involve fewer pages, or they may skip right to the transaction page. A new metric you might want to consider measuring for 2026 is how much of your site is AI friendly. A 2026 goal for your organization could be to increase that percentage. And if you need more in-depth information about the user experience or that changing user experience, consider maybe a more in-depth user survey. And as always, DSGA is here to help if you decide to take on some of these tasks. So I know that may feel like a lot to take in. So we have a few suggestions for small steps you can take right now to prepare your content for AI. The most important thing to remember is that this is a holistic process with a lot of overlapping factors. It will require an ongoing process of creating and organizing and refining your content over time. So we have some suggested next steps for you. Try conducting a content audit for your site, but not the typical here's everything in our site style inventory. Think about some of your most important topics or services and look through all the related information about it on your site. Determine where all of that information is, if it's accurate, if it's up to date, and how it's organized. Because this is a good first step to see what you may need to work on to get your content AI ready. Pick 3 to 5 of your key services and processes and convert them into a how do I structure if you don't have that already. In a few weeks, we'll actually be doing a workshop on best practices for creating how do I's. So I encourage all of you to sign up for that. We'll definitely send out information. I believe an email already went out, but that would be a great first step to take. So we look forward to seeing you there. Um, Meet with stakeholders at your agencies to determine if you need to rethink some of your organizational KPIs for 2026. If you need some suggestions or thought starters, you can review DCOE's previous KPI webinar, and we have some new LMS modules on Site Improve Analytics that you can sign up for. And then look at the 10 or 15 most popular pages on your website. That probably represents 80% or more of the traffic that's coming to your site. So make sure these pages are written in plain language, they're easy to understand, and they're formatted in a way that makes them easy to read and index. All right, thank you so much for your time today. Please scan the QR code to take a brief survey and let us know what you think. I'll leave that up on the screen for a moment. But for now, Will and I can take any questions you may have.
Yeah, I don't. We did get a question about the accordion content type in GovHub, and we had a lot of discussion about that as a team ourselves. Um, you know, really, the way these AI crawlers look at that and see that content, the way we build that in GovHub, it shouldn't make any difference whatsoever to that. So. I don't know how maybe other websites might do how might they might structure that content where it's like a see more or it's something that's closed and then open. But the way we build it in GovHub, it shouldn't impact that at all. However, what I will say is that making that answer or making that piece of content a complete thought, a complete sentence that stands on its own is recommended because if it's just one of those things where it sometimes we'll it'll be like a question and it'll be like yes, or it'll just you'll be just kind of like you'll have to go through the sequence in order to understand the concept and understand what the answer would be in the context of the whole page. As much as you can, make each of those items understandable as you go through it. So that's the same recommendation we're giving um, on um, on how to wise and things like that or FAQs and that these need to stand alone as a question and answer versus be reliant on seeing what the question was before this one in order for this next question to make sense. Make each question and answer pair stand on its own. So shouldn't be a problem with accordions. You know, um, the crawlers are going to see the entire thing. So let's see. We have another question. Will the recording be sent out for watching again? Yes, it will. And we're going to publish a blog about this topic. We're going to have as Amanda mentioned, a workshop on creating how to eyes. We've done this before. We love that format already in government, and this is just all the more reason for us to really hone our skills in making these how to eyes because they really are really the one content type that we definitely know these generative AI search results surface best. So we'll be working with you all on that. And any other questions from the audience?
Do we have any in the chat or we answered everything?
Here we go. Our website has links to Georgia statutes in PDF since they're lengthy. Would it be better to link to the Georgia statute? Um, I think that we do have a recommended style for how to reference statutes. And I am just
But typically, yeah, I mean, and this was true for traditional search, is that if it is an important link, you don't want to kind of bury that in a PDF, especially if Gen AI is probably not going to find that. So if you want to have that original, the original source in there linking to that code, I would try to put a link to a live page.
yeah, and as Amanda said, the PDFs there are issues oftentimes with accessibility. And we're talking a lot with you guys about making sure your documents are accessible and all of this ties in together. It's really it really all is the kind of the same conversation because what we're trying to do is make our websites and all of our digital assets readable by non-human, uh, whether it's an AI bot or whether it's an assistive technology that helps people read the website. All of this is making sure that your content is that machines know what they're looking at when they look at your content. So accessibility and we're talking about generative AI search are really all part of the same initiative to make our content accessible however people need to be able to see our content, whether they're using an assistive device or looking at our content through some generative AI platform.
Yeah,
So
all of this was true of SEO, all of this was true of accessibility. This is what we've been talking about. So that is the nice relief is that it's not necessarily anything new. We just have to dig in deeper on it now.
we have a question about adding non-digital services websites to Site Improve. We can help you with that. You do not have to be on GovHub to subscribe to Site Improve. And so I will, we can get somebody from our team to reach out and see what you'd like to do about subscribing to Site Improve for a non-GovHub site. We can do that.
Yeah, it's a really robust tool. We recommend everybody take a look and start tracking in there because there's a lot of great stuff in there.
And they've added stuff around AI
Mhm.
search as well, or accessibility checkers as well, so you can see if your documents are AI ready as well. Um, okay, very good. Let's see. We have Rao has asked a question in this chat. Let me look over here. Is there a tool or metric or GovHub function that helps us verify content as GEO ready content?
So that is something that our team is discussing of having kind of a rubric in place. If you can go through a lot of the training and things that we've done for things like SEO and accessibility, because it's the same things that kind of apply. So definitely looking at those scores in Site Improve, because that's going to give you a sense, especially like things like plain language, what your reading levels are. That's going to give you an idea of how well it's going to be AI ready. There's a lot of overlap for that. But our team is also discussing how we're going to suggest sort of measuring or having a rubric for that. So I would definitely look out for some of our blogs or offerings in the coming months.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. 100% endorse that answer and just want to say that, I think I think this is kind of replacing SEO,
Mhm.
So like where you would look for these SEO metrics, this is going to be where you're this is just going to replace that kind of thing. As it relates to like performance, I know a lot of times um, we look at traffic, we look at visits to certain pages to kind of validate whether we're doing a good job or not. And I think that that's just one of the things that you're going to have to look at your site, look at the information that you have and what you're trying to do. I think probably want to, I'm sure y'all are mostly already doing this anyway, but it's the real performance metric is whether people are getting to do or completing the task that you need them to complete on your website. So it's not necessarily about how many people are visiting your site. It's are they coming in? Are they applying for the for a license, or are they doing what are they completing the task that is that they came to a government website to complete? And are there fewer calls maybe coming in because they're confused? Are there, things like that? So it's not necessarily, oh my gosh, we have so many page views. That means we're doing a great job. Um, usually in government, it means something terrible is happening. So it's like we don't necessarily look at page views as as us winning, but whether people are coming to your site and getting and completing the task, that may be what you want to look at versus something like page views or things like that. But I think yeah, SEO is kind of the new or this is the new SEO. GEO is the new SEO. Um, okay. Any other questions from the audience? Do you have any opinions about Insight AI search summaries? I've seen some digital services teams like City of Boston experimenting with this, where when a user searches a government site, they get a summary alongside page results. I think that's very interesting. Yes, we have opinions. I think on our approach, we're looking at a we're going to call it. I'm going to call it a chatbot approach right now, but it may look more similar to what you're seeing in Boston or some other sites where it we don't know yet. We're still in the development, research and development stage of this for our sites, and so we don't exactly know what the interface might look and feel like. But but I think that I mean, I guess our opinion is that we will offer this at some point on our websites, and we will be coming back to y'all with with that as we have more information about what that looks like for Georgia.
Yeah, and I think the challenge is that I think that people may have an idea of it being a lot more kind of out of the box and independent than it really is of these AI applications. And it still does require a lot of preparing your content to be AI ready, preparing your website to be AI ready, maintaining that. Anything that we do offer is going to have that principle of human first, human last that we do try to espouse. So there is always going to be kind of that human touch, that human element, and just kind of setting that expectation.
Thank you for that question, Graham. Any other questions before we log off? Okay. Well, look for follow up from us about this webinar, and thank you so much for attending.
Yeah. And these are the sources for some of the information in today's presentation. So if you'd like this list for further reading, the team can get that to you. And thank you for your time today.